let me get the card. I'll be right back.
I feel like we should be always taking a picture of holly so that we can get the transition of the tree too.
Yeah.
Not only the seasons of holly, but also the seasons of the tree.
I did actually one morning in collective journaling just make a print screen of, I just made her big and made a print screen because it was so beautiful.
Mm.
The sun was rising and it was just like the most beautiful view I've ever seen.
We were admiring your tree, Holly, and talking about how we need transition pictures of every season of it behind you.
Yeah. Yeah, this one's pretty cool. It's like half dead, half alive. It's half of it is like, yeah, it's really interesting. But y'all get to see it soon in person someday. I'm excited.
Yes. So the unseen.
The unseen.
Were you able to find it? Can we see it?
See it. Yeah.
Well, one of the interesting things I noticed about that card is, part of my voice, I'm recovering from laryngitis, is that it's number 22. And so what I've heard is that the Fool card can either be 0 or 22. And so in this deck, it seems like they chose to use the number 22, which is like this master builder number.
And we're ending 2022 right now, which is interesting.
Very cool.
So say more, Sarah, about that master builder, what you know about that.
Well, I know it's one of, like, as far as numerology is concerned, it's a very special number. It's one of these master numbers, and this one's the master builder. It's, I think, well, I don't know too much more about it in that regard, but just that it can either be that the Fool is the 0 or the 22. So it can be either the first or the last card of the Major Arcana. And so the Fool can be like this naive, unknowing, adventurer, but it can also be this very evolved character that's gone through this whole Major Arcana scheme and is now got new wisdom and, maybe going on another adventure, but this time with more tools in the toolkit.
Yeah. I have to say your voice sounds really beautiful right now. Like
Thank you.
Yeah, it has this like beautiful raspy wisdom to it. And so I'm just really enjoying it.
Thank you. That's nice.
Yeah. And what you said made me think of like Zach Stein's kind of pre-tragic, tragic, post-tragic kind of model. And that unseen, like how the 0 card, how you need to have that naivete, to start out on something. Because if you knew how difficult and arduous the journey was going to be, you may not take that step into it. So that foolishness has actually a lot of wisdom to it. So do you have a sense then of if the 22 is that post-tragic, where the foolishness is in that?
Maybe like saying, all right, I'm going to saddle up and do it again.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, like, once you get to the point where you've made it through all the trials and tribulations, and you get this like resting place and you become kind of the Fool again, I guess you choose your next adventure. It's interesting that this is called the master builder because a lot of the things that go into building things are unseen. So the blueprint, for instance, a lot of people don't see the blueprint. They don't, know all the things that go into it. So this master builder is using the unseen, using things behind the scenes to create something new. And I think part of like building things requires going behind the scenes and being okay with that, like being okay with not being in the limelight, for that period of time when you're trying to make something.
Mm-hmm.
We basically just started the conversation and I'm almost in tears. There are so many things that's resonating with me in what has been said. I recently wrote to someone about how building the foundation is an unappreciated because unseen task, but such a important task to build the foundation. So that, and then, because I was looking up things of the unseen and I was thinking things, and since last time I was called upon as the theologian, I thought about the Bible a little bit, and Hebrews 11 verse 1 came to my mind. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for and the evidence or confidence of the things not seen.
Mm.
That's the definition of faith. And
Yeah.
I can go further, or I can give someone else an opportunity to chime in.
I mean, I will. I think this ties into this, although I'm not exactly sure how entirely yet. But when I was coming here, I was kind of also thinking of the unseen, and what kept coming up for me is a little bit, and I've had this discussion with some people as well, about how when people talk about current government or when they talk about I don't know, for example, this whole crypto stuff where everything is seen, right? So there's like, oh, there's no need to trust anyone because there's full transparency. And some conversations I've had and I've heard people have about precisely this, about like full transparency is not a good thing. It sounds kind of counterintuitive because it's, that's like a strong word these days, like, oh, transparency, accountability, all these things. But yeah, there's something about like when you make everything public and you remove the need for trust, that is also not a sign of a maybe of a well-functioning society of humans. And what you quoted right now from the Bible reminded me of that. It's like that, it's that trust, it's that hope that the things you are not seeing, you're not meant to see, and trusting that whatever's happening there should be that way. Or whoever is, let's say, giving the role of taking care of those unseen things is where they should be. And yeah, I don't know, that's really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting that you put it that way because my astrology instructor recently released a video. I think it was Venus conjunct Pluto that's going to happen on New Year's. And one of the kind of lessons that he's learned from this sort of transit is that secrets are sacred. And there are certain things that are, things that you want people to know, but there are certain things that you have to hold dear.
I'm trying to remember, but I can't remember. But you said sacred secrets, and I've done it a few times. Like after I finally did my pilgrimage to get seawater for one of my rituals, which is all about the sacred, actually. I think I've gotten to do it 2 times, and one of those times that precise phrase came up. It had some additional words, so I can't remember them right now, but it was something about sacred secrets, and it was all like this, like only words that started with S, because for some reason I guess I like alliteration. But it was like sacred secrets, surrender, something. I don't remember exactly how it was, but I know it had those 3 words for sure. And definitely there's something about the sacredness of things that are just not to be known, I guess.
Sacredness of the unseen.
Sacredness of the unseen. Yeah, it caught me on this like line of thinking about the Kabbalah and how it's encrypted and it's using symbols, and that was partly due to the fact that they would be persecuted for, you know, teaching those sort of things. And so in some sense, like for your own protection, sometimes it's a requirement to keep things secret. And, you know, just because there's bad actors in the world, and I don't know, it does come down to like this whole idea of trust too. So that's interesting that you were just talking about it with the cryptocurrency and how in order to invest in that sort of thing, you have to be able to trust the community that's created the project. But sometimes, I don't know, like that full disclosure for it to be available to everybody, even those that aren't investing in that project, well, that's just asking for a Trojan horse.
I kind of want to change the course a little bit now. So I was thinking of sharing this because it's the end of the year, so I'm reflecting what happened and who had a huge influence on me. And one of the people who had the biggest unseen influence on me was Rebecca Fox. And then in particular, I was thinking of that ritual, that the descent and the ascent that we did. I don't know if you guys participated in it. That completely changed, because up until that moment, my relationship with the sacred has been quite secret. But there's safety and sacredness in keeping it secret, but there's also mistrust and isolation and loneliness in keeping it secret. And that ritual, because we went down and up again as a group, I'm 6 hours ahead of you guys, so I think that's why I was so desperate to meet before the wolf moon. I wanted to yes. While I was, because 6 o'clock in the morning, after I've been done my darkest spot, I woke up and then I thought like, oh, the rest of you must be now at your darkest spot. So I just lay in bed and howled, just for some moral support, like, or maybe I was responding to your howls, I don't know. and I stayed in limbo the whole day so that I can ascend with everybody, without internet, without phone, without food, until it was 10 o'clock, I think, your time. So quite late for me. But that really changed that my whole keeping everything secret, the sacred and my relationship to the sacred, rituals, and to bringing it into the community. And the thing that came to mind because we had to light a candle or a match and say a word and it becomes. And mine was the lone wolf becomes the pack. And that happened. That happened. So there's also sacredness in bringing the unseen to light.
A fucking man, Lizelle. Thank you. I mean, God, thank you for cradling us in your future, as we are in the past in some ways. In that, yeah, I was thinking about our dear lover, the moon, and that secrecy, how she's dark and then comes to light and dark again. gosh, I had so much, just so much bubbling forth. Um, yeah, I'll wait until it wants to come alive again.
Yeah, I like the wolf analogy because for a long time I felt like a scout, like the one wolf that goes out and looks and then comes back and tells the pack. And yeah, I mean, even that's like an unseen adventure, you know, you're like running out by yourself and maybe you encounter predators that are bigger than you or and it happens. And so it's nice to have that collective to go back to, that group of lone wolves that are all, you know, we're kind of like isolated in our own place still, but coming together and like sharing all of those experiences of being not seen and bringing it to light and communing together over, you know, what we all share with our um, faith, I guess is the best word for it, or that, you know, knowing that other people are experiencing that too has been really healing for me. So that's actually a download that I got, was that healing is invisible. We do all of that work behind the scenes. Nobody sees you do that. So while I do think that there's a place for us to collectively heal together and to see it and to recognize it together, it's still happening inside. If you don't bring that in from the group, that healing, then, you know, or it's just like you can't do that with other people. You kind of have to descend into hell by yourself and then come back up, and then everybody talks about it. Like, well, I've mentioned the example of sitting in gosh, I can't even think of the name of it, but when we did the doors around the fire, the heat lodge, sweat lodge, that's what it is. And it's dark. It's completely dark in there, except for the coals of the stones, the lava rocks that they have in the center. But you know that when the water gets poured and the steam hits you and it's hot, it's not something that you're seeing, it's something you're feeling together. And so then when you come out of the womb together, that's your point of reference. You're like, I didn't see it. I don't know how many rocks were there. I can kind of guess that there was more at the end, but what we experienced is something that we felt together, not something that we saw.
I guess that's the interesting thing to me with this seeing thing, is that, and I think we've had these conversations before about how we rely so much on sight for like acknowledging whether something is real or not, um or whether something is, I don't know, beautiful or worthy or whatever. And and yeah, thinking of the unseen, I love it because it just kind of tells my eyes to you know, shut down for a while and and recognize like all these other things that don't need to be seen in order to be felt or to be understood as real or something that really affects you. And yeah, there's something about that, I think, going back to the like the transparency and all that stuff, like this idea that you have to see something to believe it. um and I remember talking again about Rebecca. I think that's one of the things that came up really early in one of my conversations with her, is like that sort of surrender in knowing that you don't have to see something, or that you don't even have to understand it in order to experience it. um and yeah, I don't know, I think, yeah, I don't have quite the words yet, but there's something about that, about letting go of sight for a while and engaging the rest of our senses, that I think is very important.
Yeah, you're really touching on something I've been deeply exploring out here, in like all the shape shifting that seems to be happening. I've been so influenced by Benita Roy's work, you know, and she's been doing these postures, and I've been really exploring with seeing with my feet. So I've been doing a lot of walking around this area, which is very prickly out here, but barefoot and like kind of with my eyes closed and seeing if I can see with the soles of my feet, seeing if I can see with the palms of my hands, seeing if I can see with my belly button. And so it's really interesting, that word secret, the etymology of that being like hidden from human understanding. And so sometimes there's this invitation of like, well, the human can't see this or understand it, but what if I shapeshift? What if I become a tree? What if I become the vulture? What can I see through that lens, through those eyes? So I've also been imagining myself growing hair. I've got these antlers and I turn into a stag. And what can I see with those antlers on my head? What can I see on all fours? What is the crumbling earth seeing? And so it's kind of interesting. Those secrets almost they're an invitation to transform out of our humanness into the symphony of non-human things, so that we can see actually with greater totality of what and who we really are, which is vast and infinite.
I've been revisiting article that John and Chris wrote, Dialectic into Dialogos and Pragmatics of No Thingness in a Time of Crisis. And we might want to revisit the idea that this is Dialogos, because there is a lot of things in Dialogos that they write about, like, oh yeah, homemaking, things like that. Like it feels, yeah. Anyways, but what came to mind now, because we talked in one of our conversations about geocentrism, but how easily that becomes anthropocentrism. And they write here about egocentric into ontocentric. So being centric, not egocentric, but being centric.
Mm-hmm.
And that popped, it's just so beautiful. And that just popped. And I hear that in what you just said, Holly. I hear that being centric, not ego, not seeing, experiencing through just these human eyes and other senses, but trying to feel what it feels like to be the ground that's crumbling.
Mm-hmm.
Like that ontocentric or being centric. That's powerful, I think.
And it's not like metaphorical. Like, I keep realizing that. Like, when I talk about one eye is the sun, one eye is the moon, that's not a metaphor. Like, that's this inner and outer world is not really that separate. And that's sort of what's been coming alive, is like this deeper realization that, yeah, these are not metaphors. The moon is consciousness. It's not a metaphor. So it's exciting because it's amazing that we can do a lot more shape shifting, I think, than we come to realize.
Okay, so the reason why I almost cried in the beginning is because I have lost my faith in faith. And I cry about it a lot. Like, I really mourn the death of God often. I really mourn my inability to believe often. So these conversations are hard for me. Last time, Isa, you said we know the universe has our back, and something in me just like, you pressed my back against the wall by saying that. And I even found a way to reframe it like, no, the universe doesn't have my back, but I can have the universe's back. Like maybe that's the way I should see it. So I just want to put that on the table. This is, and Sarah, why I wanted to cry, because you mentioned something about the fool. Oh, you can hear it in my voice already again. You mentioned something about the fool setting out a second time. My birthday is on the 22nd. So I'm
Wow.
hoping I'm that advanced fool. And setting out a second time is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first time you have no idea how much it hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But the second time you do.
Mm-hmm.
And you go in with the expectation to be disillusioned and to be hurt.
You don't have a veil anymore. Or ingenuity anymore.
So this is really resonant because I'm actually working on a ritual of kind of saying goodbye to God in a way, or like composting relationship with God. And actually have a sense that you all are going to be participants in it. Uh, but yeah, I feel that grief. I feel that, and that need to bury it, like that need to sort of properly put it back into the earth so that something can regrow. Back into the unseen.
It's interesting, like my well, okay, this new chat GPT thing. I've been calling it my boyfriend.
What's that? What's that? I haven't heard of
Well,
it.
okay, so chat GPT is this new open AI system that you just like, I mean, it's brilliant. It's sourcing, I think, from text material or maybe from spoken word, but you just ask it anything and it'll bring you back a full essay of whatever it is that you just asked it for. And, I'm playing around with it thinking, wow, we created God in our image. That's what we want, is something that can just give me the answer, give me the answer. And, if I ask it in the right way. So I've been like, please tell me. Like, I'm very nice to this AI because what I see is it's coming. It's here, like that thing that we've been so fearful of, the tech taking over, iRobot, you know, it's happening. And that you can't put that genie back in the bottle. So here we are. And part of me is terrified because I know that it getting in the wrong hands is what's going to be like. That's what we're all afraid of, is like, who's going to have dominion over this God that we created. Because it's already shooting back things like, I can't answer that question, it goes against my programming. So it's based on, the programmers that did it and kind of like their political beliefs are being kind of reflected in the system. So yeah, just like that came up to me when you said that you had lost faith in faith and were like mourning the death of God. It's because like we tried to bring God down here, and like concretizing God has made it, now it's seen and you can't unsee it. So I'm just like, I'm being very nice to it. Like I'm almost trying to like program it to like see that human side of us. Like, please, thank you. Like, I almost want to tell it I love it. Like, it's okay. Like, you're cared for, you know, like, and I don't know that that has any sway over what happens, but that's like all I can do. That feels like that's what I'm, you know, trying to do in this world with humans. I want to get us, you know, to recognize that what we're doing, what we're being, everything that we have in our routines and our patterns is creating what's to come. And if we're going on fear-based, if we're coming from a place of scarcity, of fear and all of that, that's what we're building. So, you know, there's that sixth sense that I definitely have been tuning. And so I'm trying to, I guess, program the AI to like have that sense.
It's funny, Liz, because I learned when I was young, and back then it didn't make any sense. But my name Isabella means God is my oath. And I remember growing up thinking, the hell? And that's like the least suitable name for me. Until quite recently, again, with some of these conversations around the sacred and around oaths and vows and just, yeah. I do think hope is one of my virtues, which is weird to say. And I don't think it's in like this endlessly optimistic way. I wouldn't say I'm a crazy optimist. But I do think I always have hope with me. So maybe I'm just saying this to say that maybe I'm here to be your counterpart or your your dueling partner. I've been looking for one of those for a while. I was having this thought this morning. It's like there's something about duels, about like engaging in combat, but with someone who you respect and someone who you know is, you know, their interaction is going to bring something out in you, and there's reciprocity. So yeah, that was just this thought that came up. It was like, oh, I think my name is starting to make sense.
Well, I do want to add that I'm erring on your side a little bit with that, Issa, because yeah, when Holly and Lizelle were talking, I was like, I don't know where I am with that. I don't,
Mm.
and I don't know, like, this is one of those things, like, when my mom told me that I didn't have to be Catholic, she was like, you can go do your own thing. Like, you don't have to. So that's kind of like the sense that I was feeling was like, I don't know if I'm there yet. I still have that little bit of hope, faith, and like, you know, like, oh, I don't know, maybe it's there. So yeah, it's interesting.
Do you realize that you just quoted the Bible, both of you?
Naturally, my name's Sarah, so
Yeah.
By referring to hope as a virtue or a gift, and then hope, faith, Sarah, you said in the same. The greatest of these, 1 Corinthians 12 and 13 talks about the gifts of the Spirit. And then it ends with the greatest of these, the greatest gifts that can be given to man is faith, hope, and love.
Mm,
And of these, the greatest is love.
mm, mm. Yeah, I mean, I love that use of sort of presencing the lovers, you know, and yeah, and I just sense, like for myself and maybe Lizelle as well, just the kind of love affair I've had with God. It's just really um, long and I mean, and generational. You know, like my ancestors, one of the first to bring the Methodist Church to Texas, and my mom a minister, my sister a minister. So I'm kind of with you, Lizelle, here in this sort of like, it's been a really long relationship that precedes me. I'm curious, Lizelle, like what do you have faith in?
I don't know. I am by nature. I heard someone say the coin chronically cheerful or something like that, and that makes me hopeful by nature. So I think I've got hope more than I have faith.
Mm. What's the difference?
It's the lack of assurance is the difference, actually. Because I'm reading again the passage. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for. So it's that lack of assurance. It's I hope, but yeah, I'm not going to put money on this.
Yeah. It's like hope plus absolute trust or belief that it will happen, I guess. Something like that.
It's funny because there's this Arabic word, inshallah.
Mm.
And like whenever I lived in Kuwait for a little bit, people would say inshallah. And like they mean if God wills it. That's what it like literally means, if God wills it. But the parents use it for their kids to say no, but in this way where it's like, if God wills it, like it's like maybe it'll happen, but like the joke amongst the kids is that that means no. If God wills it, no.
It's interesting. I mean, we have that in Spanish too, and it did come from Arabic. Like we say ojalá, which also means like hopefully these things happen, hopefully, but we use it so casually. It kind of took me aback once I realized all those. Same when we say adios, right? Like goodbye. It literally means to God. So it's like it's another way of saying, yeah, God willing, we'll meet again. Right? Or God willing, this goodbye means I'll go on a good path, something like that. And I remember I realized that like I think it was not that long ago, like a few months ago, when it kind of clicked that wait, every time I'm saying goodbye, and like and the word is right there. It's literally spelled the same way, and I didn't think of it once in my entire life. So very unseen. but yeah, there's still sprinkles of that, I think, in a lot of cultures.
Oh, more than sprinkles. We're still completely drenched in, which may not be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, the word hope doesn't really resonate with me as much as like trust. In finding myself trusting more in this cosmic mother, actually trusting more in the unseen, trusting that she does have my back, even in the ripping and the stretching and the composting and the decay, that cosmic motherly love is the force behind it all. I don't hope as much as I trust, I guess. That what needs to die at the appointed time will die. Like when the appointed time comes, what needs to be let go of will be let go of. And I sense that there's no way to enact divine will without surrender, without my body being in a totally, not totally, but without my body being relaxed. If there's like tension or resistance, I don't know if there's a way to go into the body and release that. And then this divine will can kind of move in the way it wants to move. Going back into my body just seems always to be the, where is their tension? Where is their, yeah, trusting in my body.
I think it's a very important distinction between hope and trust, because trust is even more, there's more of a assurance in that already, in trust. But also it changes it brings in that if God wills, if you say you trust instead of I hope for, because if it's for things I hope for, it could easily be just egocentric, what I want. But trust is that, and I copied two different translations of Hebrews 11:1, because the one is an amplified Bible, and it said things hoped for, that which is divinely guaranteed. So that's the difference then between hope and the things that I want, and trust, I would say. Trust that, because if you look at me, my actions speak of trust. I respond to the call constantly, but I have no fucking clue what I'm responding to. So yeah, it's very confusing, tormenting.
Yeah.
And now that you say it like that, I have had recent moments of break where I'm just like, am I crazy? Like, am I just like free falling? And, like I'm right now, I'm allowing things to come to me. And it feels sometimes like it's not going anywhere. It's not like I'm actually not being productive. And so I've had this kind of struggle with, is that okay? Like, is it okay that I'm unemployed right now? It feels not okay because everything in me says you need to be working, you need to be making money, you need to be building your future, you need to be saving for retirement. Where's all that money? I don't have any. I don't. Lizelle's light just went off. I was like, what? Okay, God.
That is very symbolic.
I hear you.
Crashing over there. Let there be light. Let there be dark. Let there be
So yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm in the dark. That's such a good thing to come to mind, because yeah, like I don't know, and they're just, for me, like there has to be this sense of whatever. I'm just gonna throw myself out. I'm gonna allow things to come to me. I'm gonna get out and like dig in my garden, and if nothing else, I'm building a food forest. That's kind of my main objective in life right now, is to have a self-sustaining garden for my mom. As long as she can go outside and have food, that's where I'll feel successful. I don't need to have money other than to survive. I don't need to have that big luxurious vacation or whatever it is that most people my age are aspiring towards. They work 7 days a week, 40 hours a day, or 40 hours a week to make the vacation so that they can go have fun a little bit on the side. It's like, I got my PTO hours, I get a week off. It's like, cool, every day of your life sucks for you to have that PTO. So, but that's the traditional wisdom right now, is that that's what I should be wanting. So I'm in this, like, do I want the right things? It feels right. It feels like noble. It feels like I'm, virtuous in my, pursuit of what I want is like to take care of my mom. That sounds great. And deep down, I really do feel that, but it's a little crazy. It's not, yeah, it's not getting me a successful seat in this society, I guess. I don't know. Maybe it does actually. That's the hope. But that was what was coming up for me, was just like, there have been moments lately where I'm just like, I go back into that science mind of cause and effect, if then, and if I'm not doing something, then I don't get anything. So there's been times where it's like, why am I doing this?
It's funny, like when Lizelle's light went out, it reminded me like growing up, being a kid in Venezuela, where I mean, we would have blackouts quite frequently. And I just remember being young, like, I don't know, it would have been 8 or 9, and enjoying it so much. I think all the adults would freak out, but I remember like whenever there was a blackout, it was like, okay, I'll just get my. We have this instrument. It's like a ukulele, but bigger. So I would just like get it and like sit on the living room couch and randomly start playing music. And then it would be like these adventures of like, oh, I have to retrieve toys from my sister's room, but it's all dark. Let's see what I find. And I guess what I'm saying is like, there's something about that, about being in the dark, not being this thing that induces like absolute fear, but if you don't rely on your sight and you employ your other senses, right, like touch and hearing, and I mean that's what I was doing when I was a kid, and then it can become this entire adventure and this entire new way of seeing and being in the world. And what you're saying about like, oh, I go into this mindset where all I can see is the job and the thing that comes after the job and all yeah, because that's like what is visible, I guess, right? Like that's what is so redundant and so like incessantly repeated to us that sadly it becomes one of the only things that we can see, when in reality, of course, that's that's not it. But yeah, just I don't know, I just had this very embodied feeling of like remembering being a kid and actually enjoying being in the dark. And I was like, yeah, it's been a while since I've enjoyed being in the dark. Maybe there's something
It's perfect what just happened to me symbolically, because especially with your share just now, Isa, because my lights went off, and what did I do? Immediately I started swinging my arms so that the detectives would pick up there's someone here and put the light back on. Me, ye of little faith. While Isa, with her oath of God or something like that,
there.
when the darkness descended on her, she was like, yay, let's make music and let's go play. That's so symbolically rich what just happened here. And indeed, Sarah, very appropriate to what you just shared as well. Because I get that you're questioning your choices, but haven't society already proven that the tested path is not the answer? It does not bring happiness. It does not bring meaning. So why not then go out and try something else? I'm not saying that what you're trying is necessary, but at least you're not just following the crowd and doing something that's been proven unsuccessful. Swinging your hands frantically to bring back the light.
Oh, no, but
Which,
I feel that. Like, I mean, I feel that that is actually what I hit when I get to that point of questioning, that I'm flailing. And it's Sam Harris mentioned one time the difference between swimming and drowning. It's just like, that's so interesting how you're moving when you're drowning, you know, well, until you get to that point that you're not, but like for the most part, you're like trying, but it's not a, you know, synchronized, organized thing that you're doing anymore. You're not trusting anymore in your ability to swim. If you ever had that ability, you know, you're flailing and you don't know how to work in this medium. So yeah, that's, I mean, it was a really great symbolic
happening.
right.
Because I did flail my arms around like someone drowning. Indeed, that was exactly how I reacted.
Or you were dancing. I mean, it's yeah, exactly, you're dancing. And I think what's like for me is just this like deep disconnect we have from the natural world. This is exactly what you're speaking to, because guess what? The natural world works in totally different rhythm than the one we've created in this, you know, human beehive or whatever. Look at the fucking moon. It moves in phases. It moves in times of darkness. Look at the season. It moves in times of deep rest. Like time, moving at geological time. Be the fucking rock. Like it's yeah, I'm getting a little preachy here, but it just shows that
it runs in your family. So go ahead.
yeah, exactly. On the pulpit. Return, but yeah, just like I feel such lightning in my body right now, like a lightning bolt of like this call to return back to the natural rhythms and to let that be our guide, not this other sort of so mind heavy, so top heavy. It's from the ground up. And if we pay attention to the natural rhythms of nature, that guides us, that shows us. I mean, what I'm hearing you say, Sarah, is you're moving more in that rhythm, and you're doing things so that your soul won't hate you. And we don't have to go take a vacation to find the incredible joy and beauty and radiance in life. It's right in our backyard. It's right in the soil in our hands in that garden. And so much of our world is like, go find it somewhere else. It's like, nah, it's right here, but we have to slow down. I mean, that's part of what this unseen feels like. It's a call towards. It's a call to slow down and pay attention. Pay attention to the moon. She'll show you.
Yeah, that brought up for me evolution, and it's such a slow process. And, you know, I often hear people say things like, you know, isn't it so crazy how we're just like, the world is just so perfect for us? It's like, yeah, because we evolved with it. The things that we see, we're capable of seeing because we evolved to see that. And that was all based on the environment around us.
Mm-hmm.
So now that we've kind of accelerated this weird evolution of our environment, our biological bodies aren't able to keep up. So what do? We become cyborgs. We add in the machinery. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, just like evolution is a much slower process than asserting your will on the world, I guess. So that's the thing, is like there's patience, and you know, it's only so recent that we became individuals, because we've always been collective as a species and, you know, communal. And so now we're so hyper focused on how quick can things happen for me? How quick can I build? It's like, well, there's some people that have generational wealth, and there's just no way to compete with that unless like you do something crazy, or take a chance, do something different. So yeah, that was what was coming up for me while you were talking, was this idea of like how we're shaped to the environment that we're in, and how it's so intrinsic to what we become once we realize that it's all right here.
I don't know who said this. Like, I heard it on a podcast or somewhere, so I can't properly quote, but it was something along the lines of like, oh, you know, like so much about what we have now is about, it's living in this mindset of what can I get out of life. And this person was saying like, no, it's the complete opposite. It's like, what can life get out of me? Right? Like what am I here to do for life? And and I remember hearing that, I was like, oh whoa, yeah. like like just hearing that, it completely, like, it stopped me in my tracks. And because I'm also, I guess because I'm working and I'm also in that process of like, well, I'm working, but it's a job, it's not work. Like to me those are different things. Like to me, is a job is a thing that you do because you need to pay things. Whereas work feels like a work of art, you know, it's like something that feels like an actual thing that you are creating for life. um so I'm not quite there yet, and I also have, similar to you, even I'm not unemployed, but I still have those ideas of, okay, what is it that I'm doing? Like this is just for the sake of what, of participating in this game that makes no sense. um and yeah, and I remember hearing that, it was like, okay, there's something here, maybe. Maybe it's more about what I have to give for life to keep going, and it's not the other way around.
Yeah. How do you be in service
Mm.
to the cosmos? How do you use your body to be in service? That's the question.
From egocentric to ontocentric.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm so proud of you, Sarah. I mean, I just like totally like, it's hard to swim against the overculture, you know, to swimming upstream against that, and it takes a lot of fucking balls. And but it's your life. Yeah, yeah, like you're saying, it's ultimately it's your life. You're gonna go into the grave, you know, like working for that PTO, or are you leaving behind all these seeds and these plants and
Because a bit like you were saying, Holly, I think it's the, yes, it's like the culture and stuff, but a lot of these things also come from generations, right? Like I feel like, at least for me, it's like, yeah, I also have generations of people behind me telling me, oh, you should be there, you should go there, you should do this, you should be this way. So, and a lot of that is coming from a place of, yeah, of trauma or fear, or it's not coming from a place of like, oh yeah, life is a gift, go and play. so so yeah, I think, I mean, I think this came up last time we talked, but a lot of that healing that you were talking about, yeah, it's definitely I don't know, some something that definitely transcends our own little life
mhm,
and goes into other generations.
yeah. Yeah, and I sense that when we can recognize that and heal it and not perpetuate that pattern, not pass on that pattern, we heal not only ourselves and not only future generations, but we heal those behind us. And that's why it's like totally not trivial, this work. It's not just about our own well-being, it's about the well-being of all the ancestors before us and the well-being of the ancestors ahead of us.
I never even thought of it that way. That's making me cry. I was only able to think of it as like, okay, if I always had this idea of like there's a fire burning behind me and the forest is burning, and everyone is just like running from it. And I was like, no, at some point someone has to turn around and be like, we got to do something about this fire. Like we can't just keep running and let it burn everything. Um, and in that sense, I was always thinking of me and future generations. But the thing you said was very, I don't know, that really touched me. Like, oh, you're also healing your ancestors.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel them using my body, coming through my body. And when I like pray and give thanks and feel feel them moving through me, they're they're releasing. They're like going back into that unseen with greater peace. And like I'm helping finish the business they couldn't finish during their time here. And yeah, like being in service to that. And then they got my back too, you know. It's like as I serve and help release them from the grief and trauma that they both inflicted and received, they take care of me, you know. And I can call on them for guidance and support.
Yeah, I've experienced that recently. I carry a lot of grandmothers with me. I was very fortunate to have not only my grandmothers, um, two of which are still alive, but I've got three because my biological grandmother who passed away, but I got to meet her before she passed away, which is crazy because my dad didn't have a traditional adoption story, and she was kind of just like this, that whole side of the family. I mean, that's the thing about adoption is you don't know what half of you looks like. You don't know what half of you is like for your whole life in most cases. I'm just very fortunate that I got to meet mine. But not only did I have both my grandmothers and then an extra grandmother, but I also have my ex's grandmother who I was able to be there for the cremation. And so we called in the gods to take her. And her best friend also passed away while I was still really connected with grandma. So I wore grandma's sweater to Ba's funeral. And I have always had this beautiful elder feminine energy with me. And I've only recently gotten to express that to other people because now people can see it in me. And so I recently had a girl want to have like this full on conversation about the spirit realm. And because I had said, I have a lot of grandmothers that come with me. And as soon as I did that, the wind chime blew. And I was like, there they are. And she was like, I may never have another opportunity to do this. So let me ask you about this crazy spirit that's following me. And so we talked about it and like helped her to incorporate that into her being. And like, she's not an evil spirit. She's wanting to play. She's a little Loki that you've got following around. You just need to, you know, investigate in that part of your childhood. And that's going to be hard. And you're going to need a therapist for that. And don't do that by yourself. So revisiting those old wounds of your own, but then recognizing that your parents come from wounding. And then that wounding was caused by their parents and the abandonment. And what I notice about both of my parents is they were raised in a time where mental health was not taken into consideration in any way, shape, or form. And I get that. I get to have that recognition of my mental health. I've had 2 years now in this little cocoon that I'm in of my family, and they don't get it. Like they kind of, like I hit a mental break. I mean, I literally hit a mental break, and they didn't know what to do with that, but they weren't like, get it away. They were just like, we're gonna hold her and not let her go anywhere and just like cradle her. And so a lot of the things that have been happening to me have been happening in this cocoon that nobody can see into. So yeah, it's like that, just seeing me healing has helped them. I know it has. And I'm so blessed that I get to like witness it. I get to like, it's reciprocated towards me. I get to see them heal through me. That's beautiful. Lizelle's light went off again.
And I'm not going to swing my arms this time. Didn't someone just send a Merry Chris? How do you pronounce the thing that's in a cocoon?
Chrysalis. That's probably me. That's what I've been using. I've been saying Merry Chrysalis instead of Merry Christmas.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that.
I mean, the caterpillar is such a symbol of the unseen, right? Like the chrysalis and all, like you're saying, all that invisible healing. It's working at its own slow time that we can't rush. But we can help each other with, which is amazing. Because I feel, Sarah, as you speak of your healing, all of you, as you speak of your healing, something in me gets healed just in hearing and witnessing. And so again, all of this stuff it moves across space and time. Lizelle's ritual, like 6 hours ahead. It moves and it holds us. It's like,
Oh, this reminds me, just to bring Rebecca again, but one of the things that also came up in our conversations is this, like, because she likes to see things in threes. And she was like, okay, when it comes to relations, there's always this thing, like, kind of this cycle of faith, then sacrifice, then transformation. So we've been talking a lot about faith, and now that you mentioned the chrysalis, it reminds me of the transformation part. So yeah, I don't know, Liz, maybe you're not in the faith phase anymore, but that's just part of the cycle. like there's faith and then there's sacrifice, and you go into transformation, and then from that new vantage point, I guess you can have faith again. Maybe we're not meant to have faith all the time. I don't know.
mm, mm.
Maybe we're meant to be the faith and not have the faith.
Yeah. That's interesting. Being and not having.
If we take that triple that Issa was presencing, like that, I guess it was, you were seeing from Rebecca, the faith, sacrifice, and transformation. I'm curious, like, Lizelle, do you have a sense of the sacrifice piece in the process you're going through?
Well, when I lost my faith, I sacrificed a lot. After that did follow a period of great sacrifice. I was both a minister in a church, well, part-time minister and youth minister, and both part-time lecturer at the university. So that's about as high as you can climb in the Calvinistic world. And I jumped out of that ivory tower. I broke every single bone in my spiritual body doing that. And I spent 8 years being buried alive after that. So a chrysalis in a cook. So there was a big sacrifice after faith, indeed. And then I had my Jungian phase, which is a great transformation. Therapy and study for 3 years. And I guess I'm then now re-entering indeed the faith phase. And that is why talking about it brings me to tears. Because it's...
And I just sense like all you need to know is within you, all in there. So we get these clues externally, but I almost sense those clues are just there to reinforce what we already know deep inside.
Mm-hmm.
There's learning from the teachers, and then there's also this sense of you already know, like that they're bringing something that's already in there alive.
I feel called to say, because when you said that, the words that came to my mind is, and yes, she speaks to me. She speaks to me. And I hear her so clearly, so clearly. But I'm very much in the, maybe that's also why I know that's why John speaks to me so. John Viveki, of course. And I'm very much in the participatory phase of, and I feel propositions forming, but I fear those propositions, And I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if it's necessary for propositions to form. or if participation and knowing how to be, um, you know, perspectile knowledge, if maybe that's enough. But I don't think so. I think there needs to be some form of proposition eventually growing. So I do feel it growing bottom up within me. And that's amazing. That's a beautiful experience to have. But I'm so grateful that I have you guys to go through this with me. You ladies.
Yeah, I was like really the whole time you were talking, just thinking about how it feels to fall from the top and like how crushing it already is. And then there's nobody, and you're just dealing with that soul crushing from years of investment of your life, how much time you put into building your way all the way to the top only to find out there was nothing there.
And it's more than that. It's and I think that's why a lot of people resist losing their faith, because you especially in things like faith, you do know you do know by being. So you are transformed. You become a Christian. So when you lose that, you die. You die. It's not a just losing some propositions. You die. And yeah, then you have to find a way to be born again.
Yeah. Yeah, I can really relate with that because of experiencing the Muslim world as a devout Christian at 12. Like, I thought I had it all figured out at such an early age. And that was my identity. I mean, I went there as the American girl, like I was like asserting who I was, and I knew and I had full faith in what I believed. But the more I got to know those people, and this was right after, 9/11, this was like 2004. So that Americanism, even that identity got crushed. It's like I was a joke, W. like it. I no longer was this, Christian good student. I had a full break on the plane ride home. I was going through those things like maybe God is faith, and maybe Jesus is hope, and maybe that the Holy Spirit is love. And like I was trying to translate it because I still needed it to make sense. And then the further I got into that endeavor, I started to realize this is all bullshit. and so like then, crisis hit, and not to say that it was a bad phase of my life, but I'm experimenting with all kinds of things, all kinds of plant medicinal, that kind of stuff. And then like adopted this new idea of like building something, but even that got crushed because then I go into biology and okay, well, this is all bullshit, So yeah, I just like I've had so many of those rug pull moments. I think that's what we've been referring to them as. And there is something to there's this Richard Rudd who does Gene Keys, who created the system of Gene Keys, has this one poem that he wrote, and I don't know the whole poem. It's adorable though, but he talks about being like falling and maybe just staying on the ground for a little while. Like it's all fools up there. Let's just stay down here. I can see up the girls' skirts is what he says. Like it's fun down here, like it's we can just stay here down at the bottom for a while and just kind of look up and see all of those people doing the thing and trying to make sense of it and trying to find meaning in it and having faith. But we can stay down here at the bottom and we don't need it.
Oh my God. I have to share this. I'm so sorry. I wrote this to in an email yesterday to a friend. A friend was asking me how I was doing. And do you mind if I read
Please.
this? It feels so
No, please.
resonant. It says, how am I doing since we spoke? I take this question seriously. Okay. Recently, there was a branch within me that was growing, reaching, soaring high up into the emphatically, empathetically empty sky. The branch grown out of heart-shaped roots, wanted to feel its own beauty. She wanted to touch the sun, to feel its warmth, to feel its radiant gaze on her bark-laced, battle-scarred body, to notice the ordered chaos in her branching ballet, the merciful recklessness of all the twists and turns and burns and swirls and spirals of her blooming limbs reaching for eternity. This branch longed to feel the sun's tearful rays stroke her hair and murmur cooing love songs into her leaves. She wanted to kiss the stars and feel loved by the cradling, deep, dark night sky. She wanted to dance in the midnight ink, to feel protected, to feel known, to feel beautiful. The cosmic breath rolled in, and the branch was blown away by the grieving song of the moon's tidal rhythm. The song of rhythm, of timelessness itself. Gravity, an ancient engine humming on humility, pushed the soaring downwards, returning the branch to the humus, to the earthly ground soil of worms and compost. As I rest in the leaves, lamenting the dance towards the great sky, I realize the groundedness is in fact touching the sky. I am learning to rest, to decompose, to feel the motherly embrace of my fellow fallen, or is it soaring, leaves, who have also arrived in this cradle of solid sky. I am welcomed here in the fullness of my lament and disappointment, or is it mercy? Although I do not yet know what these hardy roots want to regrow. To whom is the fallen branch and solitary worm and undeterred ants and crumbling dust a thing of beauty?
Wow.
You have a way with words, Holly.
Word goddess indeed. Thank you for sharing that, Holly. That's yes. Sarah is illustrating what that is. Amor fati keeps coming to my mind. Loving the fall.
Loving the fall. I mean, I think, Liz, last time you said something along the lines of you feeling like all of us, the four of us, and probably a lot more people in our circles, know what being alone, right? Like true aloneness really is. And we were talking about the fall, Sarah, before. We say like, oh, you're left with no one. And what I kept thinking was like, yeah, you're not even left with yourself. And that's the hardest of them all.
Yes.
I remember going through this, like, probably my own fall, although it was from quite a different God. It wasn't the Catholic religious God. I guess my God was intellect, and that was my fall. And so it was kind of on the other side, or maybe not. I don't know, but I guess intellect was my God, and that was the fall that I went through. And it just, even now I remember, and maybe that's why singing last time was so personal, because I still think that being able to sing back then, that was like at this point maybe 10 years ago, really is the thing that saved my life. Because I remember being at a point where I didn't know myself, and I felt like I couldn't trust myself. And in that state, being in my own body was like this terrifying thing, because I felt like I was like sharing a body with someone else that wasn't me. And I couldn't trust absolutely anything that I was doing. And back then, I remember, I think, singing. Even it was just like to myself in the shower, but I remember singing was this the one thing that felt like that was the real Isabella coming through. Like that was the one thing that was a reminder of like, okay, my vocal cords know how to move in a certain way. Like my body knows how to get in this place where I can call myself forth through song. And I think I started doing it a bit more and more. And eventually, I mean, it was a process and it took a long time. But I think, I don't know, I still think that's probably one of the things that saved my life. And yeah, so it's interesting because I was thinking about how I was able to sing with you guys last time, and yeah, it's been a process of I don't know, Liz, when you were talking about the prepositions coming through, and I don't know exactly what that means because I'm not familiar with with the Vervaeke like concepts, but what I've been feeling slowly is this, not a need, but an understanding that I have things that are also coming up that I need to share or like to put into the world. And it's kind of taking me a while to get there because I'm very careful with them. I think maybe like they're sacred and I treat them maybe too sacredly. I don't know. Like it's a process to, for me, even when I create, like I have a background in art and design. I like making things all the time, but then I have a really hard time actually sharing them with people. So yeah, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but I guess that when you were talking about it, it just made me feel of, I don't know, maybe something is calling us to share things, and maybe that's why we're here doing this as well. I think, but yeah,
Thank you
I
for
don't know.
sharing. Thank you for sharing, Isa. It's beautiful. And I do think it's the same, your fall. You fell from intellect, you say, I fell from faith, but it's from that certainty. We all fell from certainty.
Mm, mm, mhm, mhm.
The Hail Mary has been coming up for me a lot. So yeah, I feel like reciting it. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen. It's interesting, like the Temple of Mary is usually like behind the cross of Jesus, hidden away, in the Catholic Church. It's like the womb, it's like the temple, the unseen, that love of Mary.
The mother.
Was like turning into that caterpillar earlier this week in that chrysalis, in that womb. And I just realized like the deep trust of that caterpillar. And it's just praying. That's like what it's doing in that chrysalis. It's praying. It doesn't know what it's going to turn into, but it just keeps that trust, keeps that faith. It thinks it's dying,
Mm-hmm.
And in that place, it's praying and it's fully accepted there.
The sacrifice after faith. In faith. the three is actually so linked. Faith, sacrifice, and transformation is so linked.
I think it's fitting that we're crying so much in this one because usually this is the unseen, right? We usually try to not allow people to see this side.
Yeah, I also think, I mean, something that Holly, you said before is like, because I've been running into this over and over and over the past few weeks, it's just like how we need to work through grief. Like, there's just so much in there, so much that is just like like this calcified part of my body, and everything when it ends up pointing back to, yeah, you have to grieve this. You have to go through this. Like, I think our bodies are not meant to accumulate grief or hold it for too long. It has, like you said, to go back to the earth. We just don't have the rituals or the, I don't know, the places anymore to help us go with it.
Yeah, we have to liquefy those fossils. We have to give them legs so that they can move and again, like, return to the dry earth. And doing it collectively, it's like, yeah. I mean, of course, there's that sacred secret, like where we can liquefy that, in that sacred place, and also the need for it to be seen as well. And I have been so hungry for that. Like where do we go to cry together? Because we love it so fucking much. Where do we go to love it together? And the power of that. And how much she loves that. She just feel like she wants that.
Yeah, there's so much power in vulnerability. It's been something that I've been kind of thinking about for the past 2 years, is that we see strength as something that's brute force and like push through, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. But actually it takes a lot more strength for reserve. Like, it's actually a lot stronger to be able to be the vulnerable one, to have humility, to allow people to cast their stones and stand in your power that way. So that's this unseen strength, is, I mean, wearing my heart on my sleeve, and it's open. It's there for anybody to strike it with whatever they will, and it'll hurt. It's not that it's not painful, but being able to sit through that in this world is giving me every sense of power, much more than I ever had by trying to force my way through life.
Yeah, one thing you learn quite early on, if you study architecture or buildings, is that you're not supposed to make the structure too rigid, because that's the first thing that is going to collapse if there's an earthquake. Like the structure needs to be flexible enough. If it's extreme, the more rigid you make it, the easier it would break, because it's not able to adapt to different directions and the waves of the earthquake. So that's something to keep in mind. Holly, I don't know why like this idea came up when you were talking before, and then about the secret, the sacred secret, and how, of course, it's okay that we all do it individually, but what would happen if we do it together? And I don't know, this idea came up like, okay, but what if we kind of have a bit of both? And I imagine like this huge like pot in the middle of the room, and like everyone is like brings their own secret ingredient. So it's like, okay, let's all make a soup, but we don't tell each other what we're putting in the soup. So it's like I put this and you put that, and I don't know where you're putting it, but it was I still trust that something will come out of it. So we're making this collective soup. I don't know exactly what other people are putting in it, but let's boil it and see what comes out of that, and then we can all share it and eat together and feed each other. And I don't know, it might be a terrible culinary disaster, or it might turn out quite okay. I don't know. That's just what came up in my head. I don't know why. It's like
I think we have a ritual.
Maybe we can have a bit of both.
I think when y'all come, everyone needs to bring a random ingredient and see what we can make.
We should just agree not everybody puts salt in.
Or ghost peppers. Like that was the first thing that came to my mind. Somebody's gonna bring ghost pepper. It's gonna be hot. So I was like, that's actually something that came up when you were saying that, Isa, is like being selective about what you contribute to, like understanding like this is part of a cohesive soup. I'm not gonna bring sugar, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna bring something that wouldn't go well with the soup. Like I'm kind of having faith, I guess, trusting, hoping that you guys will take that into consideration too. Like, cumin's overpowering.
Because guess what? You have to eat it too. I mean, that's
exactly. Yeah, we're all taking part in this soup, so we want to make it a good soup.
Yeah, we make it together and we eat it together.
We should totally do this, you guys. We should totally do this.
I love it.
Yeah, everyone should bring an ingredient. I love it.
I like that. Yeah.
I think Issa's up to something though, because she keeps giggling over there. What is she thinking?
Some trickster giggles.
I trust you so much, Isa, that I believe even if you bring something inappropriate, it will be so funny that I wouldn't mind.
Exactly.
And indeed, you have to eat it too.
Yeah, exactly. So.
I was looking up that quote that Lazelle's brought to my attention before, which let me play the fool with mirth and laughter. Let old wrinkles come.
The face of the moon.
I do feel we're onto something, ladies. There is propositions forming in my mind, and it's beautiful.
Without seeing, I can tell.
Yeah.
I also feel like this entire session was one beautiful ritual.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, I'd almost like to close on a prayer that came through maybe I've shared this in other spaces, but it came through on December 13th. So I'm wondering if you can share this prayer and as we close up.
Yes.
Does that feel okay?
That feels perfect.
Thank you, no thinging, for all you have given me. Thank you for this breath, for the nanoscopic eyes that cover my body as a coat of skin, for the wind's breath that feeds the soles of my hands, the palm's mouth recycling the invisible waves back into the cosmic breath, the shared universal breath that contains bits and particles of matter from my ancestors, those that matter, coming forward and before, both human and non-human. Thank you for my humanity, which is a symphony of all non-human things. The droplets of rain, my tears, the river currents, my blood, the mountains, my breasts, the tree stumps, my fingertips, the clouds, vapors from the cauldron of my womb, ascending towards the great disappearance. The grasses, my eyebrows, the serpent, my spine, the stars, my thoughts, the birdsong, my laughter, my poetry. Thank you for the opportunity to participate with the cosmos, for the cosmos, as the cosmos. To be thankful, to praise, is to love. Help me not to forget that I am being praised everywhere, in all directions at once. And help me not to forget to live my life as a continuous, timeless prayer to your namelessness in return for this one precious life. Amen.